Never mind all the people trying to come in. You ever think about all the people apparently trying to get the heck out? A new report out that shows a record number of Americans are renouncing their citizenship and heading overseas, they say, for the lower tax bills and the overall lower angst. To our own Lindsey MacDonald on why it's not just U.S. citizens. A lot of companies doing the same thing. Our Fox Biz All-Stars will be joining us soon, including Lindsey Piegza. We got Bernard Whitman with us, Kayleigh McEnany, all here as well. So what is going on here, Lizzie?
You know, when you just look at what companies are saying, they're saying it's not just the IRS. It's also, you know, the NLRB. It's also unjust, regulations they feel from and irrational regulations from the EPA or the Department of Justice, D.C. chasing them. So, you know, what strikes me is always that Congress acts shocked that companies are moving their headquarters overseas. Given the high U.S. tax rate, given that we know we're one of the only industrialized nations to tax foreign profits, when these guys in Congress should realize that their own tax writing committee members are working for the likes of GE or GM. I've sat in IRS meetings with companies who come in to ask for tax breaks. There's no way that Congress should act like this is something a surprise to them.
I can understand the companies and all that because we know the games that go back and forth, but individuals, it takes a lot, I think, as an individual, as an American, for you to say, that's it, I'm up and I don't know where they go.
Yeah,
but are the numbers significant enough to say this is worrisome?
Yeah, it started about 10 years ago. Yes, you're absolutely right that there was a burgeoning trend of individuals renouncing their citizenship in the United States because they saw as the debt got bigger, the government got bigger, they realized that the only way they're going to pay for that debt is to go after individuals and companies. So, you know, when you look at it, I mean, the president right now is saying, listen, these guys are corporate deserters. He's calling them fat cats when, 3 years ago, he was all about competitiveness and the Jobs Council.
Term, fat, you know?
Yeah, fat.
Calorically challenged.
Yeah, calorically challenged,
sure.
Right. That's right, Neil. But, you know, I'll tell you something, and it's such a false story that these companies are paying an effective rate of 17. All in, it's like 30, 40, 50%, and it's much higher than their European counterparts. So we're talking about companies that are trying to cut their tax bills.
You know, Lindsey, one of the things I heard about a lot of the individuals who decide to up and leave is that it's not always just the taxes, it's the regulations and the hassles. And it might even be an even Steven move going to, let's say, Canada. But because Canada doesn't have nearly the number of regulations, that's Nova Scotia, for example, is a big draw to a lot of fat cats, I guess. Who knew? Calorically challenged cats. What do you make of that?
Well, one thing that we should note is that this is not the norm. Even when we talk about individual growth in terms of Americans leaving the country up over 200%, we're still talking about just a couple of thousands of Americans. So less than 1/10% of the population. But you're right.
Why did they go? For the reasons that Lizzie was stating?
Of course. The government overreaching, Big Brother involved in every aspect of our life and business and the onerous tax and regulation policies that we have. But the bigger question is, where do they go? Where's the better opportunity? It's certainly not in Europe, not in Asia, perhaps Canada or Australia. But the pickings are thin.
Certainly not France. What's going on here, Kayleigh, and how big a deal is it?
You know, we see this from the left all the time. They fight to have punitive taxation, and then they decry those who legally avoid that taxation. So, for instance, Eduardo Saverin, I know you probably all remember him, the Facebook co-founder who left. He came to this country in 1998, made a good amount of money, ended up leaving the country to flee $70 million in extra taxation. And in doing so, the left decried him. They said it was like from Independence Day when an alien came in, invaded, took what he had, and left. This is what we heard from the left. We heard the same from Chuck Schumer. But he's just...
By the way, they loved him in his pre-Exodus days.
That's right. They loved him in the pre-Exodus days. So that's what we see. But you can't put a ball and chain on companies and individuals and try and keep them here.
Is this something we should worry about, Bernard?
You know what I have to say to these folks? Buy They're tax cheats, tax avoiders, tax evaders, and we don't need them, nor do we want them here. If these people cannot even...
What makes them tax avoiders?
Because they're clearly leaving to avoid paying tax. And
it's legal.
Do you know what I have to... It's perfectly legal. It's disgusting and morally reprehensible, but it's legal. You know what I have to... Do you know what I have to say? No, don't change the law. These people benefited from an America that people have paid taxes to for over 200 years. They created these opportunities based on the incredible society that we have here. If they are not willing... And if they're not willing to contribute their fair share, Goodbye.
Well, they say they've given more than their fair share.
Well, then good riddance, because we don't need them.
40%'s not high enough? Is that
what's the limit?
Yeah.
Look, I think,
what I love
for
about this
Edward
argument?
Severin, you're fine with paying 40%. You still got more than enough
You know
cash.
what I love, Bernard, is that here, Neil, Europe is going in the opposite direction of the U.S. The UK, for God's sakes, is now a tax haven. You don't hear the UK or Ireland or Netherlands people in government there saying, you know what, we have given you so many benefits from government, so, you should stay here and pay higher taxes. No, they're going in the opposite direction and cutting their rates down. So that's what's happening in Europe, of all places.
All right, guys, I wish we had more time on this. Blessedly, we do not.